What's good, party people? This is the Court in the Woods, and I hope you guys are enjoying your Friday afternoon or evening or whatever the heck it is where you are. But I have the honor and privilege of having a, a mixed martial artist who will be making her professional debut come Halloween night. She is the one and only Samantha, the Wolf Queen Seff.
Hey,
Samantha, what's going on?
not much, not much. Just finished up a hard day of training and chilling out a little bit before I go drill some.
Because drillers make killers, right?
Yeah, so they say.
Yeah, man. And it's funny, that you mentioned that and we kind of started off on that because obviously pre-COVID, I would go living in Southern California going to shows, and when somebody would have a spectacular knockout or, a blistering submission, right? And doing a post-fight interview with them and I would like, okay, so take us through that sequence. Like, what did it feel like? What were the emotions or whatever? And they're like, we've been training that, me and my team, like for 6 weeks, that very move, that very sequence, and it just played out. So if you're asking me if I knew that was going to happen, yeah, we trained like 90 different ways to kind of force the opponent into that scenario. And it just, sometimes it beats like that.
Exactly. That's pretty much exactly what we do when we get ready for fights and competitions.
So talk to us about where you're training. We shout out your gym. Like where are you training?
Sure. So I actually train at a few different gyms. I'm lucky that the community we're in this part of North Carolina is really supportive. So my partner, he actually owns my main gym, Shell Shock BJJ. It's in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina, which is near Raleigh. It's predominantly a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. It's run by John Shell. We have a few other black belts there as well. I'm a brown belt at the academy. And then my Muay Thai instructor who's up there, Josh Robinson, he's had a ton of professional fights, fought some pretty high-level people. So I'm lucky that he's up there, and he's also one of my main corner guys. And then I go and travel to downtown Raleigh a few times a week over at Knuckle Up Boxing Gym. Trevor Hayes is one of my coaches out there. My strength and conditioning coach, Cricket, his real name's Antonio, but he goes by Cricket. He does my strength and conditioning out of a CrossFit gym here in Fuquay. But it's a CrossFit gym, but it's all fight-based workouts like HIIT training, cardio, Olympic style lifting, stuff like that, explosive workouts. And then I also travel to a few different gyms to get work in. I'll go to Embrace Martial Arts, which is in Wake Forest, North Carolina, by Professor Joel Garcia. He's Hannah Cypher's coach. She's in the UFC, one of their strawweights. And her Muay Thai instructor, Tiago Silva. They're part of the American Killer Bees. They're really good coaches, and they've helped me out a lot for the past few years. We help each other with fight camps. And then I'll also go to another jiu-jitsu gym in Sanford, run by Professor Daniel Abu, and he helps me work on a lot of jiu-jitsu and explosive MMA jiu-jitsu. And there's another coach out there, Brad Morris, their fighter. Gabby Holloway, she just fought for Bellator against Kat Zingano. So there's a bunch of like high-level fighters in the area, and they're all really good about like trying to help each other and help each other progress to the next level.
No, absolutely. And again, I love it because in terms of like people's why and how they do, it differs, between, person to person, right? Because there are people that, they stay at one gym, right? And that gym might have jujitsu, it might have everything all under the sun, right? And then, much like yourself. And I mean, you kind of remind me a bit of, I mean, now former LFA champion Vanessa Demopoulos, Little Monster, because she was at like Black House, then she went to like another Muay Thai gym that was, I would say, about 30, 40 miles away, and then another jiu-jitsu gym, another 90 miles away. So, I mean, I love it because there isn't one kind of linear path, like in other sports, right? You might play in junior high, whatever sport that is, and then you go to high school, maybe get scouted for a college, you play your 2, 3, 4 years, and then you go to draft day, or you play in Europe, right? All of those things, right? But like with MMA, it's just kind of like, even though the UFC and Pride, they were like 25 plus years old, closer to 30, but there's no linear path. There have been people that, I mean, look at Jan Blachowicz, right? The now UFC
Yeah.
light heavyweight champion of the world. And, he's got an impressive record now, but it wasn't too long ago, at the beginning of his career, he was 2-4 as a pro, and he just never gave up, right? And so there's no linear path to kind of MMA stardom or, record that you could have or whatever, or even coaches or amount of coaches that you could have. Everybody has a different, kind of ideology, and with all of those things, they're putting their minds together for the greater good of not just the fighter, but the team.
Yeah, I feel like I learned so much from all of them. My main coach, John, he always says, that he encourages us to go to other gyms, learn different things, train with different people, just know where your home is. And, it's my home academy. I'll always know that. But I really enjoy training at other places too, getting different looks. Like tomorrow I'm heading up to Myrtle Beach because Derek Brunson's promotion's putting on some fights. I'm going to train with some of his people up there at one of the local gyms over there. So, it's really beneficial to advance anybody's like career opportunity in the fight world to kind of get different looks from people.
No, 100%. And when those opportunities come, right, knocking on your door, you gotta answer it, right? But I mean, obviously, I mean, you have had a stellar amateur career. You're a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How did you start in the world of combat sports?
Since I was about 13, 14 years old, I always wanted to be a fighter. But I excelled in school, and I was always told, like, follow that path. I didn't really have any clear direction. My brothers and I were like kind of the first in our family's generation to really pursue secondary education. I had a full ride to Florida State, so I went there. I graduated on a Friday, and I started training on that Monday because I was just like up and left. And instead of going back down to South Florida to the Miami area, I decided to move up here. My parents had moved up here, and my brother was training a little over a year at a jiu-jitsu school, and I was so jealous. We're triplets, so we're all very close, and I'm super competitive. They're not so much competitive. And I was like, this is my dream. Like, what are you doing? And so I started training, and I was there like every single day, 2-3 times a day if I could. And I was like, no, I'm going to fight. This is what I'm going to do. And I kind of just was like, bye to my degrees and pursued fighting from then on out.
Now, I mean, being a triplet, and two brothers out of that kind of trio, right? And you're the only girl, right? That had to be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, everybody's probably like, oh, that's what made her so tough. No, my brothers are so much nicer than me. Like they're so sweet. Like not competitive by nature at all. My one brother is in Savannah. He's a professional artist, and he's like a prodigy. Like he's so good. He does a lot of MMA and jiu-jitsu paintings as like support. Even though he's painted my brother a lot more than me, and even my partner a lot more than me. I got one painting. But yeah, he and he's so philosophical and like intelligent. And just such a kind person. And then my other brother, he's actually here locally. He's also a brown belt, but he's not a competitor. He doesn't like to compete. He likes to help little old ladies cross the street. And he's, always trying to like do right and change the world. And he became a police officer. And, he's trying to like always be positive. I know he's struggling right now with everything going on, but I definitely support him.
No, that's cool. That's absolutely cool. And I mean, John Parker, who's a mixed martial artist and pro wrestler out in the Northeast region of the U.S., he says, where I live, you have to jump around to different gyms as we don't have many solid or big gyms. I personally think multiple gyms help really expand one's fight game. And he asks you, do you have a particular favorite style or gym?
Well, my favorite style is actually when I can incorporate all of MMA, because people will ask me all the time, because I am a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and they'll be like, oh, what's your favorite guard pass? And I tell them, I'm like, oh, I'll punch them in the face. They open up their guard. Like it's real easy to pass their legs when they're defending their face. So when I can kind of incorporate all three, same with like, I love being able to use strikes to get into like a wrestling clinch. To incorporate my wrestling. So it's kind of like a combination where I can use all of it. And then I'll have certain coaches that are really predominantly just like one type of, whether it's like, oh, this is just a boxing coach or just an MMA coach or just a jiu-jitsu coach. And then I'll have some that are more like well-rounded. So they all have really good communication with each other to kind of be like, hey, this is what we worked on. She needs something to get her to be able to hit this entry or hit this strike, different stuff like that. So it's really helpful to have so many different high-level instructors who are all also on the same page.
Yeah, the same page thing absolutely works. I've literally seen it where you've had almost similar dynamics, right? You know, like a high level jujitsu coach, high level Muay Thai coach, high level wrestling coach, right? And they all three go in, the fighter goes into the cage, you know, and halfway through the fight, if the fighter doesn't do something wrong, the real fight isn't necessarily in the cage. It's in the corner between the three coaches. Like, and that's gone down. So, you know, synergy, you can train the best places, right? But to have that synergy and to be able to pull those, resources together in a harmonious way, that's I mean, it's almost godliness.
Yeah, I'm lucky that they all talk to each other all the time. They're really personable. They also, talk to each other enough to be like, oh, you think Sam would do this by now since all five of us are saying the exact same thing, but gotta
hey, it's okay. I was talking to Ben Jones, kind of off air of the head coach of CSW under the great Eric Paulson, and he was saying how in terms of getting somebody to know something, right, and especially a fighter, right, you got to remember, yes, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and when the coaches aren't necessarily being the ones that are punched in the face at that moment, it's just like it's hard to kind of focus in, because again, they're telling you three different things, or maybe one collective thing across the three of them, and again, you're gonna get in jaw jacked, or somebody's trying to take you down. It's a rough kind of scenario.
Yeah, it's definitely like a fine balance.
No, 100%. Now, you were speaking about your brother who, got a leg up, on you by a year of training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu while you were in college. So, does that brother still train?
Yeah, he still trains. And when he watches this later, I'm gonna give him crap about he hasn't popped into my gym in a little while. And I'm like, yo, come help your sister with her upcoming fight. But my brother, he's also like a freak of nature. He's like 150, but like benches 400 pounds and like deadlifts like 650 or something. He's like ridiculously strong. So I like training with him because normally when people are that strong, they're really big. So there's usually space in jiu-jitsu, but him, there's like no space. So, and he's got like a little over a year of training on me. So his jiu-jitsu is a little better too. So I'm very competitive. So I'm always trying to get him out and try and like work with him, but he's still training. He's going into his gym. I'm just like, yo, come on, come help me out. He doesn't live that far from me.
Oh, then there's no excuse. If he was like a town over or what have you, there might be a semblance of an excuse, but no, you're like right there. There's
like 15 minutes.
At the very least, 15 minutes, dude. What are you doing? Come on, help your sis out. I'm just saying, she's got to fight on Halloween. I'm just saying. Just saying. I don't know, right? Yeah, man. So, obviously, 7-4 record as an amateur, right? That's 11 fights, right? You're going to be going into your 12th fight and your first professional fight in October 31st. But at what point in your journey did you were like, I want to fight? Obviously a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Did that happen because you really fell in love with like the sweet science that is the grappling art, or did you kind of amass that rank and status as you were going through your fight camps?
Well, from the moment I started training in MMA. Like I was starting to train in wrestling, kickboxing, and jiu-jitsu all at the same time. This was about a little over 7 years ago. And it was really frustrating at first because people who were just doing striking or just doing jiu-jitsu were obviously progressing quicker than me. And since I'm competitive, it was bothering me. But now that I look back, I'm so glad that I did it that way and did everything all at once, because it helped me become a more well-rounded athlete, especially for this sport, so that I was able to kind of approach all sides of mixed martial arts instead of just one area. but it's just something that, I've always wanted to work towards. And I mean, I remember like my first time stepping in the cage, like I knew that that was there for me. And I compete all the time too. I was doing like jujitsu tournaments and then grappling super fights. I even did a kickboxing fight. I was just constantly trying to stay active and just get whatever I can get.
No, I mean, and that's kind of crucial to be able to stay active. I mean, especially now in this kind of COVID era of MMA and combat sports. I've known probably more of my friends that were kind of on the cusp of getting the call to an LFA, a Bellator, or UFC, and they've been able to answer that call and take that short notice fight and what have you, just because again being able to stay ready, right? Staying ready doesn't it means that you never have to get ready because you're always in that kind of competition state, so I mean that's pretty much helped you throughout the course of your career up to this point, right?
Yeah, I've always stayed ready, even when everything was shut down during quarantine. Like we have mats upstairs, and I was training like constantly, like every single day. We went away for a family thing, and I was like waking up to go train there, which sucked. But I was always staying ready because I was like afraid that I would get that call, and I didn't want to be like, oh man, I'm not ready. Like no, I always wanted to be ready, so I made sure that by consistently training and trying to stay as active as possible, that I wouldn't like have any doubts or second guess myself if I was ready to take anything.
No, and that's kind of the name of the game, right? Being ready when the opportunity knocks, right? And John Parker comments. He says, "You must be psyched to go pro." He knows that there's AMIs in his region with very limited striking. Such as elbows, knees to the head, and stuff. So, are you excited to be able to get out of the confines of amateur MMA, kick pads and what have you, and be able to just utilize everything that you've learned up to this point?
Heck yeah, like I'm a 105er. You seen how pointy my elbows are? Like they're meant to throw strikes. I fought in Virginia a few times, and Virginia, I guess, doesn't really care about people because there's no limitations on like AMI rules, so you can throw elbows, knees, and kicks to the head and stuff like that. I did have my first title win. I actually won because I threw an elbow and they turned their back because elbows hurt. I was able to get the hoop, so.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's kind of the fun part too, is figuring out obviously different commissions and what have you, because I mean right here, this is the California state title won by, and actually this right here is the first 135-pound title awarded in California, and that was won by Brooke Mayo, who's now, I mean, she's fought for Bellator, and
Right.
she actually won, yeah, and she actually won that at Chris Cyborg's kind of short-lived women's MMA promotion. And so it's kind of fun, right, to see what goes in what particular states, because here in California, you're basically shin pads, not so much headgear, but you've got shin guards until you've got 3 fights under your belt, right? Once you have 3 fights under your belt, you can take the shins off, but still, no hits to the ground opponent. If you get dropped, chances are it's getting called off. Obviously, different referees have different mandates because, like here in California, we've got UFC Hall of Famer Frank Trigg, right? Or the crippler Chris Lieben, right? So if you get robbed and you're still kind of in it, even though the rules say that ref should have stopped the fight. Yeah, you argue to Chris Lieben, like, no, I'm going to stop the fight. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I know what that's like. I had Dan Mergliotta ref one of my fights once. I totally fangirled. I was so excited.
Yeah, man, it's got to be cool. And Jesse Velasquez, who's also a IFS amateur promotion champion out here in California, he says, yeah, it adds a lot of tools and even different angles. And damn, those wild elbows and knees, to the head in an AMI fight, people get rocked for sure. yeah. So I mean, it does happen, and most people when you're looking at the marquee, right, and you're like, amateur MMA, these guys are losers and blah blah blah. These are the same people that are like when you get taken to the ground, they're like, stand up.
Yeah, stand them up, Rush. Yeah. Virginia is wild for that too, though, because Virginia, if you take title fights, and I've had a few title fights in Virginia, they're also 5-minute rounds. So it's like they kind of just do away with AMI rules, I guess. Shout out Virginia.
Shout out to Virginia, and pretty much anybody that is doing it right, right? Especially right now, we've got a lot more. If you didn't think that commissions were particularly stringent and strict before this, oh, you're gonna throw COVID-19 on top of it, and it's even more strict than it is, than it ever was before, right? So, shout out to the states and commissions that are doing it right, because again, it's kind of a weird, twisted labyrinth, and then, it's when you're doing good, nobody really complains. But when, it's a bad call or, this fighter didn't make weight or whatever, it's always the commission's fault. It's always the coach's fault, all that stuff. So I think it's funny.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I mean, when you took your first fight as an amateur, right? So how far along were you in terms of your jiu-jitsu career? Like, what belt were you?
So at the previous gym I was at, in my gym now, they have a rule that if you do MMA, you should be at least like blue belt level or have earned your blue belt in the gi, which I definitely agree with, because like weird things happen in fights all the time. You could slip and end up on the ground even if you don't get taken down, and it's just too easy to get caught up that way. So I was probably just under 2 years when I took my first MMA fight, and I have no idea what I was doing. We took it at a catch weight of like 120, and I don't think I weighed past 118 at that time. So, and then at AMI, I took a few fights at 115 just to get fights and stay active. But when I'm like training hard, I'm walking around like 116. So not ideal.
No, I would say not. I mean, and it's funny because like right now, going into tomorrow's UFC fights, there are a couple of people kind of fighting up a weight, down a weight, what have you, and it's you kind of wonder what the circumstances were to kind of take that fight, because again, once you figure out what your natural walking weight is, once you figure it out what weight that you feel comfortable at, fighting at, like that's a sweet science in itself, right? So when you kind of take a fight outside of that natural weight, it's just like everything could be off.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm a pretty small person, but in a lot of photos, like I'm by myself, so I guess I don't look as small as I do. And I work out a lot. So I've had like a fight poster from a few years ago got released, and there was a ton of comments like, "Oh, beat that dude's ass," like talking about me. And I was so thrilled that people thought I was big enough to look like a man. I was like, "Oh my God, I wanted to be big." I was like, "This is the best thing ever." I was so happy because I'm so small. I was like 6 weeks premature being a triplet. I've been tiny my whole life. So I was like, "Oh my God, I'm huge. Like it's finally happening." And I kind of like turned into this whole like BDE thing that became pretty popular. So now I get stuff with like eggplants and dicks sent to me all the time, and I'm like 100% a fan.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, okay, so you're pretty tenured into your jiu-jitsu career, right? And then you took the fight. Like, what were the nerves? I mean, you had already competed in jiu-jitsu tournaments and what have you. Were there any difference in terms of your nerves and how you reacted and how your body reacted to this kind of amount of new pressure, than versus like a jiu-jitsu competition?
It was probably comparable to my first jiu-jitsu competition, where like the adrenaline rush was insane. And like I think my first fight was maybe 2 minutes long. Before I got the submission in it. And like, even right after, I was like, my heart was going crazy. I was like, oh man, like I'm like, I couldn't even drink water after, because I was like, I don't want to puke it up. Like my adrenaline was just going insane. And it was like that for about my first 2 fights. But now I think when I do jiu-jitsu tournaments, I always get more nervous. for jiu-jitsu competitions, because if people see me and they're like, oh, she does MMA, like she's gonna get gold, she's gonna this, and it's like, but what if I don't? Like, oh, anything could happen, you know. People are good, and some people are sneaky with like that's all they do is like certain lapel games, so they're gonna be really good at that. So I think I probably get more nervous for jiu-jitsu now than I do for MMA. This is weird.
No, it's fair. It's fair, you know, and especially when you've got like calf slicers and, you know, bicep slicers and whatever it can get really sketchy, you know. I mean, you know, even if you were to get knocked out or whatever, I mean, or submitted or choked out, you know, the lights go out for, you know, momentarily, you know, and not to, you know, downplay that at all, but, you know, if somebody tears your bicep, somebody tears one of your ligaments, I mean, that's surgery. You're pretty much out for, you know, 6 months to a year, if not more so.
Yeah, no, I've definitely seen some gnarly injuries. I referee at a lot of tournaments too, so I've seen some stuff.
Yeah, it can get gnarly. It can get gnarly. And Jesse kind of responds to that. You know, they thought that you look like a man in that promo. He says, "Oof, at least you didn't take offense to it." So, I mean, you're a different breed.
Was when somebody said that I looked like a little boy, and I was like, first of all, I'm a grown-ass man, not a little boy. Like, I'm an adult. That was probably the only time I actually got mad. But otherwise, I was like I'm not gonna get mad about somebody thinking I have muscles. Like, it took me so long to get them because I'm so small. Like, some people touch a weight and their genetics, they like blow up, and I'm so jealous of those people.
Yeah, you know, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, I literally touch a carb and it literally goes to my thighs.
Like, so, think about food and you just get bigger.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, my wife will make fun of me. She's like, "Yo, you've got better childbearing hips than I," and I'm like, "Sorry, just happens. Just happens." And it's funny because like I'm half, you know, American Black and then half Fijian, right? And you know, I've got women in my family that are like over 6 feet, right? And I grew out to be about 5'9", right? But you know, where the rest of my family, they grew up this way, I've grown up this way, just kind of white.
Over me, if that makes you feel better.
See, again, it's a community, you know. And Jesse says, "Big facts. It's a struggle, you know." Hashtag carb wars. Hashtag carb wars. Now, obviously, you seem to be one who, I mean, was pretty emphatic in knowing what you wanted to do in terms of your MMA career, right? So, taking that first fight, were you even more solidified on this was your path? This is what you were meant to do after taking that first fight?
Yeah, I feel like it's almost comparable to like when a dealer like lets somebody like sample their heroin just so that they get addicted to it and they come back for more. Like that one fight, that was my example. And I was like, yep, this is what I want to do. I'm addicted to this. I love this. And I just kind of never looked back from there. Don't do drugs though. Yeah.
Don't do drugs, kids. Yeah. Unless it's legal. Utah and Colorado, you crazy fucks. Just saying. No. So in terms of you know, what was the outcome of that first fight?
So I ended up taking her down early on, and then it was like ground and pound. And man, watching that, like I hit her so many times, but there was only like a few significant ones because I was so new to it. But then I actually finished with an armbar by like breaking her arm because I just had it in so tight and went back so fast. So it was only about, I think, 2 minutes and 4 seconds. And I was like, yep, this is the best. Like, it was the greatest thing. And then I took another one for the same promotion a few months later, finished that one even quicker by choke. And then I had a bunch of things happen in like my personal life that like postponed a lot of stuff for me. But I'm doing really great now. So I'm like loving where my life is going.
No, 100%. And by the way, Jesse Velasquez, who's in addition to being a amateur IFS champion, he is also a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. And he says that is a great analogy in terms of the dealer to the smack, you know? So there you go. There you go.
Well, I write a weekly blog, so I'm really big on analogies and like metaphors and like puns. Puns get me.
Hey, sometimes we're curbside prophets with our hands in our pockets, waiting for a rocket to come. I might have borrowed that from Jason Mraz, but even still, it's good. I'm going to use it. Hell yes.
Maybe wrong.
No, so I mean, after you took that second fight, literally, within months of the first fight, but what was the feeling when you got back to the gym, right? I mean, obviously there's adrenaline happening as it happens, as you're, kind of coming away from the cage. You've got your family, your friends all about. It's a good feeling, right? But then going back into the gym after that first fight, that first victory, and that's a nuanced thing itself, because you don't, I mean, not too many people. I mean, there are people such as yourself, but sometimes you don't win, right, in your first one, and you still want more, right? But you won, right? You kind of utilize everything that you have been working on up to that point, right, in your life, in your career, and then you win, right? So going back into the gym, was it more like, oh, I need to know what I need to improve on more to ensure that happening, or just like a sense of elation?
No, I'm almost too hypercritical on myself. I'm actually trying to work on that, because I'm constantly like pointing out the things I'm doing wrong. And I do have to, start recognizing the things I do right as well. But that's just how I am. I'm very like a perfectionist, and I want to be the best on things. So I try really hard, which is why I put in so many hours training. And even like win or lose, I really try not to take time off from the gym unless, I'm injured or need to rest something. And then I never have to worry about too much elation or getting too confident, because I lose like 1,000 times a week in the gym. I have people constantly humbling me, which I really appreciate. I think it's great, because at this point, like, they say if you're the smartest person in a room or like the best person in the room, like get up and find a new room, because you're not going to grow that way, which is true. Like you're never going to grow if you don't have people pushing you. Iron sharpens iron, and you're not going to get better by just constantly like beating on people that you're way more experienced than. So I'm lucky in that sense that I get my ass beat all the time.
No, man, that's the ultimate humility, and talk about like a change in like life condition, right? You could be heading to the gym, right, and somebody cuts you off, and you might go, "Fuck you!" And especially if you're, a Los Angelino, that shit happens in SoCal all the fucking time, right? But you try being on the 405 for 20 minutes or 2 hours. It's not fun, not fun. But coming out of the gym, right, after you went, maybe 2 hours in 6-minute increments where people are unceremoniously pulling your limbs from your body, choking you out to the brink of consciousness, right? And the same scenario plays out where somebody cuts you off on your way home or on your way to work, and you're just like, I don't care, because I literally survived a war in 6-minute increments, either striking or grappling or what have you. That, go ahead, you're going to get to the damn light 10 seconds before I do. Big fucking deal.
Yeah, people have no idea. Like they don't, I'm always hoping, I'm like, oh, somebody's going to get bold with me in person, but it never happens. But, I'm always waiting on that day. Equal rights, equal lefts, potato, potato. But I did have somebody go through like a 4-way stop, and they like went through the stop sign and then flipped me off. And I just started dying laughing. I thought that was hilarious, because I was like, how are you going to disobey traffic laws and then like find fault with me? But I think that summed up 2020 pretty well.
Yeah, that year, in terms of expecting the unexpected, this year has definitely been such. So, I mean, you may get your wish. I'm just saying, which is funny, because in similar scenarios, Natalie Morgan, who trains under Joe Schilling at the Yard Muay Thai, not too far from where I live, when I had her on, she would say, like, she used to be a bartender in addition to, her fighting career and professional coaching and what have you. And she was waiting, say, in the same kind of aspect, like for some drunkard to kind of test her,
Yeah.
so she could kind of haul off, and it never happened.
Yeah, I wake up like thinking like the starfish from Finding Nemo, and she's like, today's the day. That's how I feel on fight day too, because I just feel so like overly hyped up and ready. But no, never happens. And like I'm so small that in public nobody's really scared of me because I'm usually looking homeless in sweatpants. Sometimes when my hair is like braided like it is now and people see my ears, sometimes they're like, oh wait a minute, but I'm
Yeah.
really, like really far below people's height level, so they don't notice my ears either.
Boo them. And you know, you're not short, you're vertically challenged.
Yeah.
That's what I like to go by.
Or I'll have like busted lips and black eyes occasionally, and people ask me all the time if anybody ever says anything to me. No, happened one time in like 7 years. My driver's license, I had a broken nose and two black eyes, and I was scheduled to get it done that day, so I had to get it done. Nobody asked me anything. People see my ID all the time. Nobody says anything. No one cares.
And you're probably more recognizable after the fights, you know, if you were to get pulled over. So that it works.
Yeah, I got pulled over one time, and because my brother's like a cop one county over, they were like, "Oh, this license is famous!" Like they were like, "This is like circulated all the local academies." I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a prideful thing, and you know, for you guys that are like, oh my damn driver's license, it looks horrible and whatever. Again, check out the Wolf Queen. I mean, literally broken nose and two black eyes, and it
Yeah,
ain't a
and
thing.
smile. I look like a psychopath in it because like the real ID thing, like you have to smile now, so I look insane. But yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. And Antoine Hood of Flawless Victory MMA in Ridgecrest, California, also the proprietor of High Desert Pythons on YouTube. He says, you're one of his favorite fighters. She definitely has a bright future ahead of her and can't wait to see what you do next.
Oh, Antoine's dope. I always reshare.
Yeah, man. He's fucking dope. He is dope. And I mean, he was on a couple weeks ago and he actually showcased a couple of the pythons and shit. That was
Oh,
dope as fuck.
so cool. Yeah, we have a guy at our gym who did that too, like breeded pythons. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that's a cool side hustle.
Yeah, you know, and I get weirded out by Antoine because like he does so many fucking things impeccably well. Like I just do this and I talk and then I listen to other people talk and whatever. And I feel fucking lazy as shit, to be honest
Dude,
with you.
my
So
partner's like that too, and like whatever he touches, he's like Midas and just like turns it to gold. And I'm like, how? How? I was like, I
yeah,
know. I was like, that's why I like fighting because it's easy. There's rules. Like it's like one simple thing, but everything else in life, I'm like, this is so hard.
yeah, no, and my wife can probably attest to it. The fact that I mean, aside from like, you know, the podcast and like the weird kind of wormholes my brain will go into in terms of, you know, MMA and pro wrestling stuff and whatever, I'd pretty much be an invalid. I'm not really good at anything else.
I'm good at writing, so I have my blog, and I'm really good at cooking. I love cooking; it relaxes me, so I'm always cooking stuff.
And where can people find that blog? I'm just saying.
Wolfqueenmma.com.
Okay. Yeah, and we're gonna plug that at the end of the show for sure. Now, in terms of obviously, you know, somebody that has had I mean, as good of a amateur career as you can have, right? Won titles, 11 fights under your belt. Do you have any fun moments, either in the fight, leading up to the fight, after the fight? Like, what has been your favorite moment in your journey thus far?
There's been a few of them. Definitely the whole BDE thing that started the big dick energy. Like I'm so obsessed with that now. I get sent stuff like somebody sent me a shirt that said racism is small dick energy. I wear that all the time. Like I just love anything related to that. I get tagged and stuff all the time related to that. I also won for 2019. I won WMMA AMI Fighter of the Year with Queen MMA Media. So that was a pretty exciting moment. I also whenever I get to win and have my partner's kids there in person and they like see that happen, that's like a really cool feeling. Makes me all soft because you know, it's just inspiring to be able to do that in front of people I love. Yeah, probably up there. Oh, and then also this one always gets me is after any sort of fight where it's like a good win or something, and I have like little kids come up to me and they like ask for photos with me, or like especially little girls that say like, oh, I want to be like you when I grow up. I'm like, okay. So that's cool.
And that has to be cool, and especially, in times like these where, people are kind of grasping at straws in terms of like, the next kind of semblance of hope or, dreams or, kind of pushed to follow their dreams because there's not the job, not the thing that they were, kind of holding on to by a thread, right? And we're kind of challenging themselves. We're meant to kind of challenge each other and challenge our inner self. But it's cool that right from the onset, these little girls, right? They see that, and you got to think about when you were a girl, right? I mean, a little girl, right? And there may or may not have been those strong female role models. And then you are that for them. That's got to be like life changing.
Yeah, it's something that like man, I loved Mulan as a kid. Like I was like, oh, that's so awesome, and just like anything related to that. And I was always like, I just always wanted to like save the world or like be a superhero or something that's that. And I'm like, man, now I can fight. I could literally be that person that's like doing all this powerful stuff, and then I still try to save the world. Like I do a lot of like charity work, and I really try to like I'll put on self-defense seminars for domestic violence, things like that. And I'm also really big on mental health awareness for like men and women. I don't think it gets talked about enough. So I'll like use my post-fight speeches to talk about that and just kind of normalize it a little bit because I just want like positivity and everybody to do good, which I know is like a pipe dream because if you log on to social media these days, oh my gosh, people are just so angry and like hateful towards each other like all the time. And so instead I just post on my social media either pictures of my dogs or food or like my butt. That's a big one because my butt makes people happy.
I guess. I mean, I guess. I mean, I feel like I'm, especially more so than ever. I feel like that the native guy in Joe Dirt, where he likes snakes and sparklers. Like me, it's this podcast and memes. That's it. Podcast and memes. Like and trying not to do anything that pisses anybody off. I don't do anything offensive. Nothing. Whatever. But it's just like and some of it is just like pretty shitty, like either dad jokes or potty humor. But it's just like again, you see people react to it, and again, like you guys are fighting or whatever, and now your guys are kind of like rejoicing over a meme. Fuck yeah, man, that's awesome. Ah, you're too kind, Jesse. He says meme king. Actually, Jesse's the one who kind of started me off because I was like, hey, if this dude's a MMA champion, blah blah blah, whatever, and he can just post memes and not give a damn. Why the fuck not, man? Like why the fuck not? So
I have a folder in my phone just for memes.
see, we need to follow each other on social media because I think we might be, just
Yeah,
kind of kindred.
made a meme of me that got pretty popular because I was like, I think holding one of my title belts and flipping the camera off, and they used one of my quotes, which of course would be the quote that made it, where I was like, if you're not willing to lose a titty and continue rolling, like you never really wanted to win in the first place, because they were talking about like if a boob pops out, like when you're like competition, which definitely happened to me. I didn't care. Like I want that W.
Yeah, it's an I'm gonna have to do like I do to most people's DMs. So you remember that when Habib Nurmagomedov, he's like send location, right? And there's a meme of that.
Yep.
I completely washed out the location and I put out send meme. So yeah, and I people have reciprocated pretty well, and Jesse says to your meme, like a fucking savage,
Yeah, I still stand by that. I was like, I still stand by what I said.
Damn right, Now, in terms of you were talking about mental health awareness and domestic violence and causes that speak to your heart. Like, how did you become involved with such things?
I think just even though I'm in like a very violent sport, like I have a really big heart, which I try not to, put out there too much because I don't want to ruin my reputation. But
my
advice,
with me.
yeah, and like everybody watching. But my life has definitely been impacted a lot with people who struggled with like thoughts of anxiety and depression. I've unfortunately had people close to me who either attempted suicide or committed suicide. I actually have this mental health tattoo. It says a warrior with a semicolon symbol, which is a symbol for suicide awareness. Because I want, I really hate the fact that there's such a stigma associated with it, especially with a lot of our veterans, and people don't appreciate everything they have been through. I have like family members and relatives and friends who've been through a lot, and we take that for granted sometimes when we don't see that. And then, with domestic violence, I see stories every day, and it's heartbreaking. People feel like they're stuck in this cycle. I had dated somebody at one point who didn't get violent with me, but would have if they didn't think I could, I could have probably like kicked their ass. But if they didn't think, that could happen, and did get into a situation where he tried like committing suicide or like held a gun to me. And it was just something that I was like, man, people don't get the help that they need. So I hate seeing my friends like hurting or people dealing with stuff like that. I don't want them to have to deal with anything I ever dealt with. So I always let people know my inbox is always open. I'm not like a mental health counselor, but I'm a good friend and I'll always be there to listen.
And sometimes that's all it takes, to have a resource to kind of reach out to when again you feel like you're literally trying to hold everything up together while you're drowning in quicksand. That's how it can feel. And it's funny that you bring that up because I mean I think to a large extent most people deal with mental illness and not even know it, right? In a multitude of different ways. But I just I yeah, so I got done watching Robin's Wish, which is a documentary about Robin Williams and his fight with what we ended up now knowing as Lewy body dementia, right? And the struggles that he was going through, or even the recently departed Chadwick Boseman. The last photo that he posted, I believe it was on like Jackie Robinson's birthday or something, like because he passed away on Jackie Robinson Day. So I think it was either like James Brown or Jackie Robinson's birthday earlier this year, and he posted a picture, and we now know in hindsight that he was going through cancer, and I mean he was on his last legs, but people were calling him Crack Panther and stuff like that, and he had to see that, right? Or what happened. Yeah, it's horrible, right? Or right, what happened after Robin Williams' passing? They were just like, oh, he committed suicide and writing him off versus like all of the joy that he brought to people, and it's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, you never know what somebody is going through, and I think the whole world can benefit by a little more compassion and empathy. I'll never like even if I disagree with the things people are doing or the things they're saying, I never wish ill on someone. Even like for fights, it's people are like, oh, talk crap about your opponent. And I'm like, it's a job at the end of the day. Like they didn't hit my dog with their car. I appreciate anybody willing to step in the cage with me. Now, that's not to say it's always reciprocated. I've definitely had people say things back to me, but unless it gets like, personal about my family, I'm like, man, I'll just let my fists do the talking. Like, who cares? Like they'll see what's up when we step in that ring,
Yeah, no, 100%. And of all the fights that I've been to and all the fights that I've watched on TV, the best moment for me, and I actually get pissed when they don't show it on TV, is like at the end of the fight, and everybody, the fighters are shaking hands, hugging, the coaches, same deal, like that is the best fight of every fight for me as a fight fan, because it's like nobody's going to know what you went through at that moment than the person standing across the cage from you. And if you can't have some semblance of a relationship after that, like that's just something that your family aren't going to know about you. Your spouse may not know about you. This is an experience that unless you are there standing on the opposite end of the cage or ring, like you're not going to understand. So like, why can't you be good with that person? It's weird.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, like how guys growing up, when they get into arguments and they like beat the crap out of each other and then they're okay after. I'm like, yeah.
No, 100%. I mean, and it's funny because a lot of the people that talk, usually are the ones probably least adapt and applicable to actual fight experience, so those are always funny too.
Yeah, it's always true. And the really like controlled fighters and stuff, they're usually like the ones that just sit back.
No, 100%. Yeah, sit back and just enjoy the popcorn and watch the cards fall as they may.
Exactly.
Now, I mean, obviously, we talked a lot about your fight career, but in one aspect of the fights or are obviously the weight cutting and what have you. You mentioned that you don't cut a whole lot of weight because you fight really close to your walking weight. But I mean, as you are in fight camp now, and you have been previously, you're cutting weight, and you get cravings, right? I remember doing a shoot for like Thor Skanky, who's a former King of the Cage champion, and me and my videographer, we were getting like, oh, dude, Thor's cutting weight. We got to hide the in and out smell from our breath. And we are literally dousing ourselves in mouthwash as we're heading up, right? Because we don't want to piss off a fighter who's cutting weight. But with that all being said, what are some of the treats that you look after, either after your fight or uh, after your weight cut, that you're like, I must have?
All right, so this is about to be good. So again, I only cut like 15 to 18 pounds, which isn't like a whole lot compared to some fighters, but I am really small, so it is like a good 10% of my body weight. So I really like up my water to hit that water cut, and I'm good in the kitchen, so I make a lot of really good tasting foods. So it's not that I'm like craving to miss too much stuff, but post weigh-ins, I always eat bread and butter, pasta that without sauce or anything, and then some sort of like protein, like piece of like, I usually like steak or something, because I'll cut out red meat like 2 weeks before the fights, and then when I do have red meat, I'm like, I feel like She-Hulk. After a fight, I always like to have like a shot of whiskey or tequila, and I'm not a big drinker at all, but for some reason, like post fight, yeah. And then again, if I don't get a good steak that night, I want it after the fight. Pizza and donuts for sure, because I eat so healthy all the time that I don't really have cravings, and my stomach would not be able to handle like eating like that at all. Like I haven't touched fast food in years, but pizza and donuts, I'll scope out like a local donut place, because the mom and pop ones are always the best. So I'll scope that out for post fight. The day of a fight, I usually like to have like some sort of like plain carbs with the sandwich and like a shot of wheatgrass and an acai bowl, which is like such a jiu-jitsu stereotype, but that's like my jam. And then one of my students' parents promised me, because again, I love cooking. I watch cooking shows all the time. He promised me a nice cut of Wagyu steak for post fight. And like, I love Wagyu so much. Last time I had some, I cried when I took a bite of it. Like I love Wagyu steak.
Oh my God, that's a brilliant piece of meat. Geez, I mean, the Japanese, they know what they're doing.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. And like, it doesn't even need anything on it. And I always like joke that I like my steaks like I like my opponents like bloody. I always get it like super rare because it's just so good. And so I'm like, honestly, I'm 100% looking forward to that. He tagged me in a meme about Wagyu today. I was like, oh my God.
It's like, you might have to have another folder in your IG kind of profile just for that, like things to indulge in after the fight.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And people, and like nothing, like, food is good, but winning is better, but nothing tastes as good as like victory pizza. Like, oh man.
Yeah, no, I mean, even when I don't win, I find myself in pizza. So there's that. There's a bit of total disclosure there.
Yeah. It's like by far my favorite.
Yeah, and Jesse, as it relates to weight cutting, you said that's for sure. People never understand 10 pounds for a 135er is way harder than 10 pounds for a heavyweight, because it comes off easier for them, and it's not fucking fair.
Yeah, it's like 105, like, bro, I have like a crazy 6-pack. I don't walk around with a 6-pack. Like I have like an actual 6-pack, and I'm always like, people are like, "Oh, you look amazing in that photo." I was like, "Yeah, I'm literally dying in that picture, but thank you." Like, that's not normal, Sam.
Oh yeah, but I guess perception to some people are reality, right?
Yeah, so I always try to be upfront about that, because I don't want people to like misconstrue that idea and think they need to starve themselves, or like that I wake up out of bed looking like that. Like, oh my God, I wake up looking like 100% homeless and like a mess. But, I got goals, and like, same thing when people, why don't you put effort into your appearance? Like, my body hurts, bro. Like, I'm not trying to freaking take time. But whenever I do, like, if I have to go anywhere like fancy and like actually do my makeup and hair, I get like 1,000 comments on Facebook. I'm like, y'all are assholes. Like, people are like, oh my
God. Some people, they can't be helped, I guess, right? No, so I mean, obviously, you're stepping into the fight on Halloween night, right? It's gonna be a horror show for sure, right? So there have been many people that have helped you along the way to get to where you are. So let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Yeah, so definitely all the coaches I mentioned earlier, Josh Robinson, like but he always tries to downplay himself, but like he's family to me. Like I got a tattoo for him too, because I have a whole jujitsu and MMA sleeve with like all the logos from my instructors and like lineage and belts. And his nickname was Short Stack, so I got like a little short stack of pancakes right there. And then I was lucky to Trevor down at the Knuckle Up gym that I've been training at. I've known Trevor probably longer than anybody in the fight community here. So it's nice that we've been able to maintain that friendship, and he's so knowledgeable, and we've been able to get like a group of ladies to come in there. Leilani Hodgins and Talia Kusnielli, who happens to be Trevor's girlfriend as well, but she's been helping me a lot with this camp. Gabby Holloway is freaking awesome, man. She is so like multifaceted with her like wrestling, jujitsu, and striking. And, she's fought at like the highest levels. So she's amazing. I've trained with Hannah Cyphers a bunch. She's awesome. Miranda Maverick came and trained with us quite a few times. She has her upcoming UFC fight the week before mine for the flyweight division. So I'm super excited for her. She works very hard. I've been lucky that there's been so many people to help me with the area. My partner, John Shell, like he always downplays himself, but he won worlds as a brown belt. Like, he's a badass, and he does so much, like works a full-time job, runs a gym, is a landlord, like an amazing father to his kids. And his daughter actually is a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. She's 17. She'll be 18 the day before my fight, so I'm excited for that. But her wrestling is really good too, and she's been just getting back into jiu-jitsu after a long layoff, and she's helped me out a ton too. So I'm really grateful about that. And everybody at my gym, they're awesome. They're always like doing their best to try and help me succeed and get to the next level. And my brother better show up so he can help me.
Just saying, bro, you've been put on notice. Just saying. Yeah, no, 100%. Now, it is, like I mentioned earlier, right? This fight is taking place October 31st. This is Halloween night, right? And I mean, this year of 2020 has been a complete horror show for a lot of us, right? So what are people going to see out of Samantha, the Wolf Queen Seff, October 31st?
So excited to fight, and I love Halloween. It's like my favorite holiday, so I like couldn't have asked for a better debut. Like when I found out it was on Halloween, I was psyched. I have I have to bring out all my Halloween decorations because I have like so much crap that I'm just like ready to put out. I love horror movies. I'm totally alone in that. Nobody else in the house does, but I absolutely love Halloween, and I can't. And I'm also kind of fighting semi-local. Myrtle Beach is only a few hours from me, and I never get to fight close by. So I have a lot of people from the gym that are going to come go. And then it's Halloween night, so we'll get to enjoy the rest of the evening after that. But I know for a fact that whether my fights have been like win or lose, like I've never put on a boring fight, which is why I was like, man, these promoters like get me on your fight card. I will put on an exciting show. Like I absolutely love fighting. It's my dream. It's my passion. Like I'm not going to go in there to do anything half-assed. Like I go in fully assed to everything. So people should be excited to watch me fight and expect to see a show.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, for those who don't know, right? Tell us about the promotion that you're fighting for.
Showcase MMA. It's run by Casey Oxenine, who was actually one of the commentators on like the first fight I ever did as an amateur. And so go way back. And I always said from like that first fight, like, put me in, coach, like, let me bleed for you. Let me fight for you. I will do this. So he knew that I wasn't going to be a letdown in any sense of the word. I always follow through to my word. My word is my bond. If I say it's going to be exciting, it's going to be exciting. I will always be on weight. I'll always be ready to show up. And it's not that I ever doubt or second guess my opponents. It's just like, I know the work I put in, and I believe in myself so much that I've strived so hard for this for so long that I don't think that there's going to be any doubt in my mind that I'm in over my head at any point in time.
I love it. I love it. Now, for those who haven't already followed the Wolf Queen, Samantha Seff, where can they find you on social media?
So my blog post that I run a weekly blog, and I talk a lot about, mental health as a big point, my training, stigmas that come with like anxiety. I'm very vulnerable in it, which I was nervous about at first, but it's been pretty successful for over 2 years now. So I guess people like reading about that. And that's wolfqueenmma.com. My Instagram, Wolf Queen MMA, which you will see like a lot of butt pics. I don't have an OnlyFans yet, but we'll see. We'll see where the future goes. Twitter, I don't get on as much, but that's Wolf Queen MMA 1. I usually just link it to my Instagram, stuff like that. TikTok, Wolf Queen MMA, which I suck at TikTok, but I did have a video go viral that was just TikTok made it for me, because it was literally me taking my clothes off for a weigh-in, and I guess people were like, oh yeah, it was just like a weigh-in video.
I guess
personality too, but like no one cares.
Boo them. Boo them. Boo them. No, man. Well, I can't wait for October 31st to happen. I mean, I almost wish it were tomorrow, and to an extent. I mean, there's my wife's birthday on October 11th, and which also has Josh Barnett's Bloodsport on Fight TV, and then October 31st for Showcase MMA. I cannot wait. You guys shouldn't wait. And if you could get tickets to this thing, get tickets to these things. And please, if you find out of any inclination of a stream, let me know. I will go ahead and purchase that, because man, support local MMA.
I'll post it when I have the info to the stream. And yes, if you can come to the fight, please hit me up for tickets. It's Halloween night. It's gonna be exciting. Like, come on, you don't want to pass out candy to the neighborhood anyway. Like, let's pass out knockouts instead.
Yeah, why not? Why the hell not? Well, again, thank you guys for joining us. Samantha, thank you, and good skill going into your fight on the 31st for Showcase MMA. And if you haven't already done so, follow her, but also subscribe to this channel. But enough of me talking. Let's find out with somebody else.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe.